Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where we have as our guest Louisiana Senator Elbert Guillory. Senator Guillory has been on the media, frankly, all over the United States because of a speech that he posted on YouTube about what he thinks is going wrong in America, and particularly what he thinks has happened to the black community. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Louisiana Senator Elbert Guillory. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome to Legal Lines. I'm extremely pleased to have on the show today our Louisiana Senator Elbert Guillory. Senator, it's fantastic to have you on this show.
It's a real joy to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You know, you have literally been all over the national media. I think sometimes I can't turn on the TV or the radio or even the web without seeing you, and it's because frankly, you have given a speech that has just gotten America focused in a way I've never seen before prior to that. Tell me how that came about.
I guess the Lord decided that He wanted me to deliver this message. And I guess the triggering event was moving from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party, which I did during the last, at the end of the last legislative session here in Baton Rouge. And just kind of a quick summary of your history, because you have a pretty amazing history. I mean, first thing is you're 69 years old, and to me you look like you're in your early 60s. So like I said, it's an inspiration for me. But tell the folks about your life heretofore. Born in Opelousas in rural Louisiana. Did agricultural work and yard work as a young boy outside the home from 8 until I became a lifeguard. And that was my first real job, my Social Security job. Graduated from local high school in Opelousas, J.S. Clark High School. Went to university when I was 16 years old. My first arrest came when I was 15, sitting in a library where black folk were not permitted to sit. Really? Yes. And wow. Went to the university at 16, was expelled at 18. I was editor-in-chief of the newspaper there. Must have said something they didn't like. I wrote some things that were number one, illegal, but were also outrageous at that time being 1963. I wrote that if I pay America's taxes and fight America's wars, that I must be able to walk through the front door of America's courthouses. Makes sense to me. Didn't make sense to them, though. Didn't make sense to them. Wow. And ultimately, I had to move on. So I joined the Navy and finished undergraduate school at night while I was in the Navy. And frankly, you know, I don't know if you would have, you didn't necessarily have to go as quick into the Navy as you did you? No. No, I went to the Navy because of what I just said. This was a time in American history where there was a lot of upheaval, and I really wanted my credentials proper so that I could make the demands on America that I intended to make and was making and continued to make. I love it. Okay, fantastic. Well, take us through it. Went to law school right after the Navy. Was admitted to some decent law schools. Yeah, go ahead, tell the folks. Harvard and Columbia and Rutgers and some others. Chose extraordinarily high dollar, but also highly credentialed universities. Yes. Which speaks highly of you, frankly, and your academic accomplishments. Well, my parents were serious about school. So I've been reading since I was 2 years old, reading the newspapers, comics, and then graduated on up. By the time I was 10, the Encyclopedia Britannica was there, and the great books, and we spent a lot of time doing that. My two siblings One is a surgical nurse in Houston. The other one is on Baylor's medical faculty, one of the nation's top-rated neonatologists.
Wow. So it runs in the family.
There was no choice. No, there was just we had to study and we had to work, and that was it.
The power of a mother and a father.
Absolutely.
Who were wonderful role models, I assume.
They were the two people who have influenced me most, my mom and my dad. When I was a boy, I wanted to grow up to be my daddy.
I love the fact that you said your daddy, you just lost him here a little while back at age 102.
Yes.
And your mom?
Mother will be 104 in about 2 weeks and 2 days.
Well, tell her happy early birthday from all of us.
I certainly will do that. She'll be happy to hear that.
Well, it's just a wonderful story. So you graduated law school from some quite prestigious university. And then what happened?
I'd been doing civil rights since I was 15, as I was explaining earlier.
So pushing up against the walls constantly.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Justice.
Right.
America should deliver what it has promised, and I wanted to make sure that did, and that's what I devoted my life to having done, to seeing. Worked for the state of New Jersey as a consultant, in the state of Pennsylvania as a government manager. Ran my first state agency when I was 29 for the state of Maryland. The governor of Illinois chose me to run an agency for him. I didn't stay in Illinois long. I went to Seattle and ran a city agency for I was on the cabinet of the mayor over there. And
so involved in politics as soon as you got out?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It was always going to be. I saw myself then as a child, as a warrior for justice, and as a warrior for my Lord, and His word, and His style, and His kingdom. And so that's what I've been doing. Left Seattle, came home, decided that I was going to get married and have a daughter named Imani. I built a house, met a young woman a half block from the house on my street.
Amazing.
In a storm. On our first date, I told her that we were going to be married and going to have this child. And all of that stuff has come to pass.
The power of focus and hope, huh?
And focus and hope and belief. Tremendous faith. I celebrated my 69th birthday by rappelling down a skyscraper in downtown Baton Rouge.
I love it. I love it. You are truly amazing, and the history reflects that. Let's talk about your speech, because, you know, as I mentioned earlier, it really has exploded in America. Explain to the folks why you decided, as you indicated, to switch from the Democrat Party affiliation to the Republican affiliation.
I thought that the Democrat Party had moved far to the left, farther from the people that I represented in District 24, and really far to the left of the people of Louisiana on basic values issues of family, issues of life, issues of gun ownership, issues of prayer in schools and in public places, the issues of government spending, of not being frugal, but just spending and spending and spending, as our federal government is doing now. For those reasons, all of those values, the Democrat Party had left behind. And it left me behind, left my heart behind. So I made the switch.
And I guess that change had been taking place over a period of years in the Democrat Party, but it had pushed it to the point that it was time you couldn't take it anymore.
I couldn't take it anymore. And there was one event that I'll tell you about.
All right, we'll continue that on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith Legal Lines. Senator Elbert Guillory will be right back. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines again. I'm extraordinarily pleased to have on the show Senator Elbert Guillory. He's a senator for District 24 here in the state of Louisiana. Again, Senator, it's wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Let's kind of quickly summarize again for the folks. We kind of had them hanging there, but you left the Democratic Party and you switched affiliations to the Republican Party. Tell them why.
That's correct. Values. The Democratic Party has just moved away from the basic values of my state, my people, and my heart.
And as we mentioned earlier, you have literally been on every news outlet that I know of, radio station, program, all over the nation. And it's as a result of a speech. The last count I looked was approaching 1 million hits. I think it was 8,000 comments and over 14,000 likes. Tell the folks how that speech came about.
We decided to put together a little video for the folks back home. We were going to do one version of it on social media, and then about a 4.5-minute version on social media, which you can see at elbertguillory.com. Then we were going to do a smaller version of that for television so that we could let the folks back home know and understand why I did what I did, making the switch. And
you had no expectation of what happened, did you?
No. We expected good response from the folks back in Opelousas and Lafayette and the Acadiana area, St. Martinville, Breaux Bridge. But we started getting emails and telephone calls and letters from California, New York, and Florida, and state of Washington, and there's just been a flood. We had to hire an additional person because we at one point we were getting 2,000, 3,000 emails, letters, communications per day.
You know what's so interesting to me, Senator, is the fact that your history shows that you were always pushing the racial walls that had been in existence. You were on the front lines of all the civil rights movements. You were fighting as a lawyer for the civil rights movements, and yet you made a change because something's happened. And you, I guess, set that out in that speech.
Yes, we tried to. This is a time in America for truth and for us to really understand the values that got us here. I believe we're at a dangerous point in American history.
I do too.
We have not lost our nation. But if we continue going the direction that we're going, we can lose America. America's been the land of opportunity. It's been a land of God for 237 years.
Amen.
Or 36, one of those. And we're in danger of turning far to the left, away from those values and away from the greatness of America.
You know, as I read the speech, I frankly analyzed it because it was extraordinary. And you basically point out historically the difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Explain to the folks about that.
The Democratic Party has historically been against the rights of black people. The Republican Party started as the party of abolition in the 1850s. After the Civil War, and Lincoln was an early Republican. Frederick Douglass, an early Republican.
Right.
The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments that gave rights to ex-slaves, rights to vote, rights to citizenship, to due process in courts. All of those came from Republicans. Even in the 1950s, in 1957, the first modern civil rights law was brought by and championed by Republican President Dwight Eisenhower.
The United States General.
Absolutely.
World War II.
World War II. He understood what equality meant for America, and he championed it. Democrats filibustered that bill to death.
Which means they killed it.
They killed it.
They didn't allow it to become law.
That's correct. In the 1960s, 64 and 65 Civil Rights Acts, President Lyndon Johnson, who's a Democrat, put those forward, but it was the Republicans in the House and in the Senate in Washington who really passed those bills and voted for them against the advice and the desires and over the objections of the Democrats. So we have to understand where we came from and who's been our friends for a very long time. And then we need to look at the policies of Democrats today. And if they do not suit us, then we should look back a few years and see some of our old friends, and maybe it's time to go back to our old friends.
And you know, the preeminent black leader, or certainly some would say the preeminent black leader of America, Martin Luther King, was a Republican, as I recall.
That's my recollection. I'm certain that his dad was. People who were close to Martin King Jr. told me that he said from his own mouth that he could never be a Democrat, and there's a reason for that. The Democrats were the ones who were shooting at him and fire hosing him and firebombing him all of this time in his public career. So it's easy to understand why he would not choose to be a Democrat at that
Would make sense.
Yes.
Well, so you gave the historical context for the reason to at least consider the Republican Party as an alternative to Democrats. But you and I were talking before the show that the truth is both parties have moved in a direction that we personally don't like, because we believe they're moving away from the values that both parties held, at least to some degree, more so in the past than they certainly do today.
Yes. We took a bad turn somewhere, I think, around the mid-50s or the mid-60s, and started to ease away from God, first of all. I mean, America's been a Christian nation.
Amen. True. And that's just the way it is.
That's right. That's the way it started. That's the way it has been. It's right there on the money. It says it. In God we trust. One nation, under God. That's been our identity. And we've been moving away from God. And that's a big part of the problem. And some of the social programs that have come up by the Democrats. If you just look at their social programs and the impact of those programs on the black community over the last 40 years, it's been devastating.
Well, let's talk about it, because you used the word, the Democrat agenda and policies were basically liberalism. And that, in essence, to you means big government and powerful government.
Yes.
And explain to the folks why that's unacceptable.
Well, let's look at the outcome. The outcome of liberalism and the liberal agenda has been a higher unemployment in the black community, high incarceration in the black community, very low education in the black community. The reading scores from my graduating class 50 years ago were higher than the reading scores of the graduating class in Opelousas this year and last year.
Pretty much says it all, doesn't it?
Yes, we're going backward. Illegitimacy, single mother families.
I read 73% of every black baby born right now is born out of wedlock.
That's correct.
And of course, it's high in the whites. I'm not picking on, but it means they're growing up without a family in a lot of instances.
In a lot of instances. Between the incarceration rate and the illegitimate rate, we have very few fathers who are at home raising their children.
All right, we'll continue this on the final segment. This is Locke Meredith Legal Lines. Senator Elbert Guillory will be right back. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. Again, I'm very pleased to have on the show Senator Elbert Guillory. He's a senator here in the great state of Louisiana. Senator, let's dive right back into it. We were talking about the horrible effect that the liberalism has had, the big government policies have had on the black community. Let's go into a little bit more detail, because when I was reading your speech, you talked about how the government's big and it's powerful. And as a result, it's reduced freedom. Explain to the folks how that has manifested itself. You use the term government plantation.
Yes.
Pretty potent language.
Yes.
Explain why.
Coming out of slavery, I do believe that the big government programs have re-enslaved my community. I'll give you a couple of examples.
Please do. I believe it, though.
If you look at welfare and food stamps, they have not raised any Americans out of poverty. They were supposed to be. Originally, they were conceived as kind of a bridge over troubled waters. Someone was having some difficulty in their lives, and so they would have some welfare for a period of time, and then they'd be able to pull themselves back up.
That's right.
What has happened is that we have, from birth to death, complete welfare for generations. So there are no 2 and 3 and 4 generations. No one has worked. No one has earned. No one has lived the American dream. No one has achieved the opportunity. America's been the land of opportunity. That's the big thing. People come from all over the world because America's the land of opportunity.
That's right.
When you stifle creativity and self-worth, you kill the ability to achieve. And that's what has happened to my community. When I was growing up, you could not find a man during the workday. From 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the evening, no man was around because every man was at work. Every man was supporting his family. Today, you can find men, able-bodied, healthy, young men walking, and they're not working, but they are able to succeed at receiving these little government handouts. And those little government handouts have become the American nightmare as opposed to the American dream. These men will never support a family, will never really achieve the greatness that God put into them. They won't have a car that they've seen on television or looked at in a magazine. They won't have the house that's something that it's a part of their dreams. No dreams, no opportunity. We have hit the wall. And it's been because government has said, okay, we're going to take care of you. We're going to feed you. We're going to give you some housing, whatever transportation you need some child care. We're going to do that for you. You don't have to do anything for yourself. And that has killed the spirit of the black community.
Truly. And you know, a manifestation of that, at least in my opinion, is the crime rate. The absolute decimation of the young black man.
Yes. All over America.
All over America. It's not just in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Chicago, from Florida to the state of Washington. And that too is a part of stepping away from our values. We let people put garbage into our communities. And this has been done with the complicity of the government. Government says freedom of speech. You got to let people put any kind of stuff that they want to put into your community. And so the words that you hear are words of violence, of disrespect,
right?
Disrespect for women.
Life.
Yes. Those are the words in the music and on television and in the songs that you hear as you go through minority communities, urban communities. Disrespect is rampant. And if you give a little kid a video game where he learns to play killing, and he does that until he's 13 years old, his only response can be to kill. If there's any problem that arises, the only thing that he's learned all of those years for a decade, his only response is to kill. So that is his response at age 13. And so he gets a gun and he kills. Guns are not the problem. It is the culture of killing that we have fostered by putting so much garbage into our children. We have to take back our communities. We have to keep the garbage out. Our kids need to see God.
Senator, I have spoken with a lot of law enforcement folks, and they have told me that after they'll pick up these young men in their teens, early 20s after killing somebody, they basically have said, we didn't expect to be alive to age 20, or at best we were going to be in prison. There is no hope. There is no dream. Explain what has happened.
Well, it's what we've been talking about. It's when government comes in and will take care of you from the cradle to the grave. You have no ambition, no desire, no dreams, and no hope.
Talk about the decimation of the black family.
There are government policies right now that would prefer that a man not be in the home. Woman can get complete care for herself and her 3 children. But as long as this man is not in the home, once he moves into the home, then they lose that amount of support. It's not that he can bring additional support, but the family's support goes down. Those are the kinds of policies. Anti-marriage policies, double taxation upon people who are married. Those are the policies of the Democrat Party and of big government that have eroded the black community.
Talk about solutions. What do we do from this point forward? We don't have but a couple of minutes, so I know that's impossible to state quickly, but talk to me what you see are the solutions.
I'd like to see a lot more prayer in schools, and I'd like to see a lot more education in schools. I think that educating our children is the best way. 40%, more than 40% of Louisiana's schools are poor performing schools, and most of those are in my communities. We've got to do better than that, and we're working very hard to bring up the education level. That's where it starts. Using welfare as a bridge over troubled water.
A true bridge.
Yes, and not a lifestyle for generations. It's something else that we need. We need to have the self-respect of taking care of our own families.
And I know you said it over and over and over, but a refocus on God and community and absolutely family.
Absolutely. When a kid goes to school, they've got to pray, because they must know that there's something up there that is going to really crack down on them if they aren't doing what they need to do. We must turn back to God.
But God loves them, and they have worth to God.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. Senator Guillory, it's been a pleasure and an honor. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. Thank you for being with us today.